All right, we just transitioned over live, and I am going to um, turn my phone down so that we aren't distracted. Um, One of my sisters in the fight is coming on, Alicia Harrison, so she'll be in here in just a second, and she's a social worker. I'll let her introduce herself. Um, Give me one second.
No worries, no
I
worries.
always like to look at it from my phone too, just to make sure all is right. And yes, there we are. Okay, so we are live, and we're going to start our conversation like right now. My name is Tony McNeil. I'm an organizer with Faith in the Valley, and today I have my Faith in the Valley hat on. Yay! We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, faith-based community organization. We organize throughout the entire Central Valley. So we're all the way from Kern, Fresno, Stanislaus, Merced, and San Joaquin County. That is important to know specifically because of what it is we're about to dive into and talk about on this evening. And then I asked my brother to jump in, and we were going to start at 7, but I needed to go early because my brother can't stay past 7. But I wanted to make sure that his voice is in. So this is my brother Ryan from Sacramento, and so I met him when he was organizing in one space, and now he's somewhere else, and I'm bringing him in as Ryan. But Ryan, introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, sis, for having me on. Brian Clinton, currently with Public Health Advocates, based out of our Sacramento office, program manager around first response transformation work. But once organizer, always an organizer at heart. But definitely lean in with a ton of groups doing amazing work. People's Budget SAC, Incarcerate SAC, Justice Jobs, or even just name them because there's so many great folks that are doing work and just thankful to be a part of that community trying to get things done here in Sacramento.
So the reason why we came in and I had to have your voice in is because you put up a post earlier today, and that post I read it, and I've been busy like back to back to back to back meetings for real, nonstop, and I'm not talking about pity pat. I'm talking about real stuff that required my undivided attention. Right before I tapped into a meeting, I read a post. Ryan, what were you talking about on that post?
I was really highlighting something that another great friend and sister of mine, and actually co-worker at Public Health Advocates, Dr. Flojan Kofer, lifted up. Really just calling out that at this point, when we're seeing so many of our unhomed folks trying to survive in what is severe weather, winds up to 60 miles per hour, on top of freezing conditions, on top of rain that's taking place. But yet we're in the middle of a pandemic where we have huge facilities that are just sitting vacant and have been vacant for months on end. Why are we not doing everything possible to get them indoors to make sure that they're safe? And it's a shame on all of us for allowing that to happen. Definitely we could look towards our elected officials because that's your first role, right? You're a public official, your public safety, your public accountability, your public well-being. And there's a number of public parcels that are available at city and county's discretion to use, yet you haven't used them to get folks off the streets. Now, I'm not going to say that in entirety because there has been programs that I think most counties and a lot of cities have used, such as Project Room Key, which has been a huge help during the pandemic to get
Mhm.
hotels and vouchers and whatnot to get some of our unhomed folks indoors. However, it's still not enough, and that's always what we're faced with, and that shouldn't be the problem with the abundance we have, not only in our city of Sacramento and county of Sacramento, but throughout our state of California. We know the problem in Stockton is huge as well. Homelessness has been on the rise there for years and has gotten to a peak point over the past couple of years, if I'm correct on that, right, Tony? Um,
Mhm.
and just recognizing that that's where we're at, there's a bigger call to humanity of how do we stand up and make sure that our brothers and sisters aren't dying in the street. That post you're talking about, was we. Dr. Paul and I often refer to each other as twins because it's like we have this symbiotic brain of where we're thinking something, and one way or another in another space will do what the other one was thinking or something along those lines. And um, this morning, I was hearing the winds last night. We kept talking about I was seeing the damage happening at my own home here in the backyard. And when we woke up this morning, like we're just seeing like it was devastation in the backyard. Fence, not only our fence line, but on our fence from the neighborhood across the other side, completely down. I mean, it looked like a tornado ran through our backyard, and that's not an exaggeration. And all I could think about looking at that was somebody died tonight. Somebody died last night
Mm.
because they weren't indoors. Somebody had to try to endure what just happened in that backyard, which tossed a 60-pound sleeping or not bag, a sandbag of an umbrella, tossed it like it was nothing. Somebody had to try to survive through that.
Right.
And shame on all of our public entities that didn't do something about that. So I was calling that out. There's a reality that there's things that we have at our discretion, and sometimes civil disobedience means let's cut through the red tape of saying, oh well, we can't get approval for this in enough time, or we can't get approval for that. Forget that. Do we have keys to that building? Do we have
Right.
where somebody can get home? Let's open up the doors and make sure they're out of that situation for tonight. We can clean it up. We can staff it up. We can use money to do all those things on the back end, but we need to do that immediately. And that shouldn't be a question. That should be a demand from our elected officials, from our constituents, from our voters, from everybody in our communities, because that's a humanity question. Doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. That's a humanity question. If your brother or sister or mother or father was out in the streets freezing cold, you want them to be home where something like that's going on. Why can't we allow that to happen? So that's what that sharing did, and it really fueled a lot of today's actions for myself.
So my sister is Miss Penny just tapped in too. And welcome into the space, Miss Penny. I'm gonna get you introduced here shortly. What I want to do is to make sure that I get all of what I need to get from Ryan before he has to tap out. So when you put that post up and I read it, I kind of felt you. I felt your heart, and I knew where you were going. And so I asked the question as well. I put a post up and I was like, okay, so in essence, what's going on? What are we doing? Because I remember, what was it, last year, you guys, or we had a surge in the heat, or was it before that we had a surge in the heat? Y'all know, so you're with me, right? And because the people who were in their homes were inconvenienced with rolling blackouts, our city officials and different individuals created warm cooling stations for community members. Now watch this. The cooling stations weren't primarily implemented to cover and protect those that were houseless, that were in the community dealing with the heat. The cooling stations were equipped with stations where you could plug in, and hydrate and all of that, but it was for people that were in their homes, that in those areas with the rolling blackouts. Now, that being said, if you can use these spaces for a cooling station, can you not use these spaces for a warming station? And so I wanted, Licia, I needed you to tap in early as well, because Ryan is from Sacramento, but you referenced, Licia, some things from Sacramento. So will you intro yourself real quick, and then just kind of tap in on some of the things that you saw taking place in Sacramento that we don't see taking place here?
Hi, so I'm Licia Harrison, social worker. And what I had shared with Tony earlier is that when I worked for Sacramento County as a social worker for Adult Protective Services at the time, we were called to, do some overtime at the winter shelter that they opened up downtown to come in and assess the individuals who were 65 and older to see if there were services that we could connect them with. And also the navigators were also a part of that, so that they could cross-reference their database to see if they had had previous contact with them, just, so we could share information and see what they knew about them, and we check ours to see what we knew and try and get them, of course, more permanent and stable housing, get them out of the shelter. But the other part was this particular shelter allowed pets. And, this is, I say it's just one of those things that people think it's not a big deal, but being allowed to bring your pet to the shelter helps get people off the street. And it is really a significant factor in why some individuals choose to remain on the street instead of coming into a shelter. And what I was sharing with Tony is I'm just not aware of any shelter that I have ever referred anybody to here in Stockton that allows animals. And, this is one of those things that, of course, the homeless issue in Sacramento has been exponentially larger, population than here in Stockton. However, they have been working at it, it seems like, more diligently than we have. And in my own experience of working or having individuals who are homeless on my caseload, I would sometimes, contact the navigators and say, hey, this is my client. Have you seen him? Do you know him? Any information about him? And they would literally send me a picture of, they're on K and 8th, right here. Here's a picture of your person, and this is their location. And then once I, made contact with the individual, I would be able to contact the navigators and say, hey, can you go find my person and tell them to stay put? I'm coming to meet with them. And I just don't understand why Stockton is moving so very slowly towards implementing some of these same measures.
So Ryan, I know that you only have just a few minutes before you tap out. Some of the things that they're doing, like today, you were saying that they're pushing for some stuff in Sacramento. What's some stuff that they're pushing for in Sacramento?
Yeah, so it's really a testament to a lot of what Alicia shared of work that's been going on, and a huge, huge shout out to all of our homeless and unhomed advocates in the area that have been pushing heavily for not only immediate and relief centers, but also long-term housing and whatnot. And it's been a long, ongoing, complicated fight. Something that I really appreciate all those who have been able to give capacity to that space, because it is our most urgent need in Sacramento, and I think everybody agrees with that. But as such, there was a pretty hot city council meeting last night where they were talking about what are some of the solutions that they're going to bring forward. Where a lot of people saw, the mayor have a moment where they said he erupted, his passion. And, it's always something that, all of us working in the community, we appreciate passion. We want to know that you actually feel something behind this, because hopefully it charges you to do something. But, there's a lot of critiques about what does that emotion do? What's following that action? So again, this morning, as folks woke up and seen the damage across Sacramento, there were text messages and calls and emails flying every which way saying, what can we do right now? People literally like myself were getting together, just whatever blankets they had, sleeping bags, saying, we know dropping this off isn't going to solve this problem at all. It's going to help, hopefully, a little bit, provide some level of comfort to those who are at home. But we need a bigger response. We need something that's more stable, right? So our city council members actually called together an emergency meeting and recognized that, there's opportunities to use funds.
So wait. The city council decided to call an emergency meeting on their own, or were they responding to an outcry of the community?
They were responding to the outcry of the community.
So they got blew up via email, phone calls, text message, social media, all of that stuff that required them to move to action. Some people were stirring the pot.
Absolutely. You have to stir the pot, because it's oftentimes that it's not that people don't care or don't want to do anything about it. They don't recognize that sometimes folks lose sight that you actually have the ability to do something about it. You have to have that urgency behind you. And typically it's our community that drives that fire. And that's what happened. They ended up pulling together a emergency meeting that just wrapped up, I want to say about an hour and a half ago, where Councilwoman Katie Valenzuela, one of our new elected leaders, and also comes from grassroots work. I got to name that because that's where we changed some of the dynamics we're seeing. Lifted a resolution to have, if I'm correct, I don't have all the language, so please bear with me on that, but lifted a resolution to have $1 million immediately available to the city manager to implement some of the warming shelters and support to private facilities such as churches, congregation spaces, community spaces to open up and be supported with staffing and whatnot, so they can get folks off the street immediately. We all know it's not a long-term solution. It's not something that's going to keep people off the streets permanently. However, it keeps people alive today and tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. So even though they made this resolution, they talked a lot about the intricacies, and Lisa said something that's very important, right? It is a complex issue. Sometimes some of our unhomed folks can't get into places because they can't have their pets there, which if anybody who's had a pet understands, your pet is a member of your family, right? That's a big thing. So just even having the language around like how do we roll this out and how do we support facilities, and because keep in mind there's COVID restrictions that impact the capacity and whatnot, right? That's still not to say because these challenges are there that we can't find a way through them. It just means we have to be that much more diligent. And I'll say one of the last things towards it was that the $1 million that was moved in that emergency meeting was not the end all be all. They, city council, the mayor, and everybody acknowledged that come Tuesday, our next council meeting, we're going to have to look at improving that number much more significantly so we could sustain these warming centers bare minimum through the winter.
And where did the $1 million come from?
Yes, thank you for saying that. If I'm correct, it will come out of our general fund, but what some of those policies and key provisions that you have to recognize is that FEMA actually typically has a reimbursement program set up with each municipality. It's typically around, well, at least for Sacramento, it's between 75% to 100%, which if I'm correct, it's actually at 100% of reimbursable funds. So if you use those in lieu of a severe weather situation, natural disaster, some of those things, disaster relief, basically, then you'll be able to recoup those funds 100% from FEMA. But you have to put those funds forward, right? And it's under those ordinances. Now, the politics of how some of that comes out typically will be tied to what your local county's restrictions are around your severe weather guidelines, emergency response. That'll set some of the templates around what you're able to do as a city or some of that. However, it's still available to be there. It takes that will of the elected officials and leaders to actually say, we're going to use every resource we have available to actually put something together quickly for folks to be able to benefit from and hopefully save lives.
I want to thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time, and jumping on, even just being able to come on early before we posted that we would go live, just to accommodate that, because it's important. One, we have to know what it is that our neighboring cities are doing. And that's grassroots organizing at its finest. We have examples of things that can be done that are around us that we have to look into. Two, we need to make sure that we're having elected officials that are in seats that are familiar with or come from organizing. If we have officials that are sitting in these seats that have never organized, it's good to be a business owner. It's good to be a former educator. It's good to be a retired such and such and all of that. But if you don't know how to organize, if you don't know how to talk to the community, if you don't know how to rally together the folks in order to get a thing done and to move, then guess what? All we're going to be is business, minded and this minded and that minded. And so I appreciate you lifting that up as well. Because we've got some grassroots boots on the ground folks that have just newly been elected and sitting in seats. And so we'll be pulling on them in order for them to help stir up the pot as well. And we'll be pulling on some of the folks in Sacramento. And so I'll reach out to you and connect with some of the folks that have been moving some stuff in Sacramento in order for us to see, if we can create some research meetings and stuff. It shouldn't even take all of that. You know what? They just need to get together and do something. How about that? Just do something.
And having all these committees year after year to research and explore. I'm like, but in the meantime, people are still homeless on the street. So quit exploring. You've spent enough money on having these exploratory commissions and what this, that, and the other. It's really time to act, right? It's time to act.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. And again, Sacramento, we always rock together. Stockton's our sister city. We right up the street from each other. We only stand to do better when we all do better. So any way that we can support, definitely we're here to do it. And again, it's like you said at the start of the conversation, Tony, we stand to do better when we learn from one another and we understand what's happening in other cities and neighboring communities, because that's where our folks often end up going to when they have to move to the next city over. So the same issues they encounter in one area, they can encounter in another way, especially if we're not systemically getting those things changed. So that's what we got to continue to do, is have these conversations, find ways to activate, not just have a conversation, not just have a committee meeting, but actually put in action and make things happen. that's what continues to happen as we do this work. So thank you for bringing this
So the
conversation
city
together.
called it, and we need to. So the city called it, and then well, I'll talk to you again to find out if the county is going to come in and do something else, because we know that the counties are, gatekeepers of major funds, and we need to talk about that too. You guys,
Excellent.
so snap it up for Ryan. I appreciate
Yes.
you. Y'all gonna be seeing more of him because we're working together on a couple of things. So I love you, bro, and I'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys too. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Have a good evening.
You too.
So, Miss Penny, I want you to introduce yourself. Let's see, I got a couple other folks that are supposed to tap in shortly. So, Miss Penny, can you introduce yourself?
Uh, I am Penny Mims. My husband and I have a nonprofit called Mims Corner. We have been working in the community for the last 12 years, honestly, with the children of Nida Elegant. And then after COVID hit, my husband and I started doing the homeless. And I kind of chuckled when you said about the photo. We literally take photos of our clients, and when we've been posting it on Facebook, but we hide their faces. But we want the county to know that we're out there doing the work, and we have no funds from the county because my husband and I we do a lot of fundraising, and we just received our nonprofit status in August of this year. So we're the new kids on the block. So most of them don't want to take a chance with us. But if you go back and look at our history, we've been doing the work a long time without the funds, and we're able to do the work and get the work done. I started this morning. Last night, our power went out at about 10:30 and did not come back up till 3:30, and then it went back off at 4:30. And I get up every morning for 5 a.m. prayer, and I told my husband, I said, "Oh my God, we got to do something different for them because they're not moving fast enough." As the gentleman said, they're not moving fast enough. So this morning we got up and we decided to buy the first two tents, and then we put it on Facebook for people to start donating so they can get a family off the ground. They might not be off the street, but they'll be off the ground, and it's waterproof, and it can seat 3 people in the tent. So we're up to now. I think we have about 10 tents on order. So my husband and I will be out tomorrow because Amazon will deliver up to 10 o'clock tonight. So we'll be up trying to put tents together, and we'll be out tomorrow giving tents to the ones underneath the bridge. It's off of Church Street because we have a rapport with them. They literally look for us when we show up every 2 weeks to make sure they have something to eat and they have water and they have food. Last weekend we went out, we gave out hats and gloves. Prior to that, we were giving out blankets to make sure they stay warm. So we are on the ground trying to do what we can do with what we have because they are our brother. We're our brother's keepers. They have nobody else. And I always look at it as it could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes. So I am here to help in every aspect I can. So for the last year, come March, it'll be a year. We have been going out feeding. We have been going out making sure they have clothing. We have been going out making sure they have blankets. And then with this weather, now we're on a tent. We're on a tent move. And we're going to, if we can raise 75 to 80 bikes for children, we can raise 75 to 80 tents for the homeless to get them passed out. So that's where we are right now. We are out trying to make sure we save somebody's life.
Do we see Penny? Because you're there, you're on the ground, and I know that there are others that are out there, and I'll mention some of the other things shortly. But do you see an increase? And what is the diversity that you see in the homeless population now?
Oh, the African Americans, then, I mean, it exploded. At first, it was not that bad because I mean, my husband used to go out there and we're like, okay, so there's a lot of Hispanics and Caucasians, but it literally now, I want to say a good 70% African Americans are out underneath the bridge now, and it's full families. So we
Oh
started
God.
in Church Street. Yeah, we start no. If you go on my page, there was 2 little girls in my last week, and you talk about my heart broke. Oh my God, what can I do to fix this ASAP? But I say all that to say is we have to get out there because it's growing. It's not getting smaller, it's growing. And then with COVID and people don't have jobs no more, there are more people living in their cars underneath the bridge than there are in housing. So you know we got a problem. we got a problem. I met a young lady who is she works for the city, but she can't afford housing because she part-time and only
Right.
on minimum wage. So she can't afford housing, so she's out on the streets. Eh,
So I know that we have an increase in the families, and that messed my heart up because I was homeless for 2 years with my children. Um, so and we just got not even permanent housing, but temporary housing for Mr. Bailey, 80 years old. He'll be 80 years old in a couple of months. Who was in his car for 10 months. Um, and and that's when I met Deborah. Is it Deborah DeLay? Um, get her last name here just in just 1 second. But
oh,
that's
with
when
the
I met
dome, with Dome nonprofit, Deborah.
Deborah. Is it it might Deborah Delash? Deborah Delash is her name.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
travels throughout from city to city to city to city, delivering sleeping bags.
Hmm.
She takes donations, she takes contributions, and she uses every penny that she gets to buy sleeping bags
So we
in
do.
order to give those sleeping bags to get the homeless through the winter. And she goes to areas where you have a high concentration of houseless families and elderly. And so I met her because she wanted to make sure that Mr. Bailey had a sleeping bag because in anticipation of the winter that was coming.
We gave out twin mattresses. We literally were given foam mattresses. I think we had about 70 of them. We went to the encampment just to get them off the ground. We gave out mattresses, and we didn't even have enough.
Mm,
It's the TV station really needs to just go out. Don't put their faces on there, but go out and see what's really going on. If they get out there and see what's really going on, that Sacramento mayor, my hat went off to him this morning when he was on the
yes,
news. He said, cut
That-
the red tape, the heck with the bull crap. Let's just get them in a place and we talk about how we going to fix it and pay for it later. I was up, standing up on my feet this morning in the bed shouting, you go, you go. I wish I was there.
Yeah, I
But
had to turn around. I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? And I'm like, oh yeah,
right,
he's having a real minute here. But
right.
I did not blame him. I'm like, it's about time. Somebody just finally said, enough is enough.
hmm.
Yeah, his
And
heart
we need
came
to do
out.
something.
Yes, yes. I think we lost Tony.
So I'm here. I needed
Okay,
to pull something up real quick. Just bear with
okay,
me.
okay.
I know you can hear me, but here's what I wanted to do. Because pause that for a second. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share something really quick. So let me bring my camera back up. So no, I'm here. Let me share something really quick in order to because people know stuff, but they only know stuff in part.
Right. We all know our own little certain area.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
But
so I'm gonna share this video really quick for everybody to see.
I had been living in my apartment for over 20 years. And then I've come to find out I paid my rent on time. I wasn't on drugs or alcohol, any of that. I was a model senior citizen, ministry in the church. And all of a sudden I was told to fill out some papers, Section 8 papers. And I filled them out. Then later on I found out you don't qualify. So they gave me November the 12th to move out. I was hurt. I applied, I moved out. And then I found a room. I moved in there. I was mistreated. This lady, she had cameras all over the place, a little burglar alarms and all of that. So I finally moved out. I said, it's better for me to stay in my car. So I moved in my car and I stayed in my car for about 10 months. It was a nightmare. Every time I try to sleep at night, police or security guards would come by and say, "You got to move. You can't sleep here." And I would move. And sometimes I would see thugs uh, in the cars would pull up behind me, and they'd be whispering to one another about and then I see them get out of the car. Then I say, "Oh, I better get out of here." Sometimes I'd be trying to sleep, and next thing I know, I hear somebody pop one of my hubcaps off, and or else somebody trying to open the door while I'm trying to sleep. And so I had to keep moving. And not only that, I was afraid to eat. I lost a lot of weight because where could I use the restroom? The businesses wouldn't even allow me to use them. They say you got to pay in order to use the restroom. And then I would go to the porta potty, and guess what? They were filthy.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even fit for a dog to use. And so I have kept moving, kept moving, kept moving. And I said, "Lord, you got to help me. I can't do this alone." And so as I continue to, and then not only that, what really hurt me, at least I had a car to sleep in. When I saw elderly Black women, Mexican women, white women sleeping in cardboard boxes, and these are senior citizens who had families, who worked hard, who raised their families, who helped build this country, who helped pay taxes and all of that, out on the streets, and told you can't stay here. You got to move. And not only that, guess what? Sometimes the garbage man or whatever, they would come by and just take the little cardboard houses and pick them up and carry them on the way. And they was left out there in the cold. I said, "Oh God, help us. If this is what this society has come to, Lord help us." And so I continue to move. I continue, but I said, one thing, I'm not going to lose my self-esteem. I'm somebody. There's somebody. And I want the kids to know, or the families to know, this could happen to anybody, not just me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, life is like a wheel. One day you're on top, and the wheel turn, guess what? It's hitting the dust. So any one of us can have this experience. And so what I'm saying right now is, have a heart, do the right thing. Look out for the citizens. Look out for these people who have built this country, who have paid taxes, who have raised their children. And guess what? The children, most of them, a lot of children have rejected them. God have mercy upon us. And so what I'm saying today, I lived in fear. I never knew where I was going to go. I never knew what I was going to do. I couldn't relax, but I had to stay on the move. You can't stay here. The light, flashing light in my face. Oh God, is this what this society has come to? And so I make a plea to you right now. Do the right thing. Care for the senior citizens. They have built this country. They have paid taxes. They raised their families. And the society is known by how they treat the elderly, the senior citizens. It'll go down in history. So this is all I want to say is, do the right thing.
Right thing.
Can I get on my soapbox for just a moment?
Absolutely.
So, that is one segment of the homeless population that I think people really don't have an understanding or a realization of how many elderly individuals are actually out there on the street, or borderline, just one more I don't know, incident away from becoming homeless. And it's easy for the general public to sit back and live, in this false reality that there are all these services and programs that are so easily accessible in the community, and anybody who wants help can just go get help. But the reality of that it's not that simple. And I tell people this all the time. If it was that simple, I wouldn't have a job. If it was that simple, just go get these services. And I would challenge anybody to that's 20, 30 years old to fill out a Medi-Cal application and get it filled out correctly with no errors, submit it, and get it done the first time around. And you're looking at, I have an 83-year-old client right now that I have been working for the last 2 months trying to get some housing for him. But people's lives are not simple. They are complicated. And he's sleeping in the back room of somebody's garage right now. And the last conversation I had with him, he told me that he might just wind up sleeping under the bridge. I'm filling out the applications for low-income housing for him. But all these places have, of course, wait lists.
Right.
And, people that are homeless or are transient, it's hard to keep up with your belongings. Things get lost, things get stolen. So it's not so simple that you can just, you should have ID, but you might not have ID. You should have your social security card, but you might not. And or your birth certificate, especially if you're dealing with subsidized or low income housing, all of the documents that are required to submit with these applications. It's a process. And for somebody who's 83 years old with no transportation, no family that wants to help, not that they're not here, but are choosing not to be involved, this is how people wind up on the street, because the securing the housing does not move fast enough. And finding all these documents that are lost that we have to apply for, and he doesn't drive and he doesn't have the transportation, and we're working with COVID, and this agency is closed, the next one's closed. I called the Veteran Services Office for 2 weeks straight before somebody finally called me back trying to help the veteran get, I filled out the forms. Are these the right forms? Where do I need to send them to get this stuff expedited? So that's another problem that people are running into. You can't just go to these agencies anymore in person to apply for the services, or, even pick up rental applications. I've had people tell, oh, well, we have to mail it to you because, our office isn't open. There are just so many hurdles. And now I just want to throw out there for all of the people who think that, if you wake up this morning and decide, okay, I have a substance abuse problem and I want to get help, that all they have to do is pick up the phone and the county has a bed somewhere for them for inpatient treatment. You're living in a fantasy world. That's not available either. And I can tell you that from working at the county hospital and talking to the substance abuse counselor, and there's not. These beds are just not readily available. Discharging people from the hospital to the shelter. There's not a shelter bed every single day for every person who needs one. People want mental health services. It's a process. You don't get to pick up the phone and say, I need therapy right now, today. That is not how that works. And I'm going to be honest with people. This is one of the reasons that I circumvent, I do refer people to county mental health. In my current job, I still refer people to county mental health, but sometimes I refer them to the trauma center. And the reason being is because it does not require a referral, not the standard, like you got to wait 2 weeks to be assessed and this, that, and the other. When people sometimes are kind of like on the edge, and I need to talk to somebody now, not 2 weeks, not in 3 weeks, not a month from now. So I just really want to put that out there to dispel for the community at large. These services are not just easily accessible and available. It's a process, it takes time, it's complicated to navigate the system. And if you have, low literacy, low education, if you have a substance abuse problem, you're right, this impairs your cognition. If you have a mental health problem, this can impair your cognition and your understanding. And if you are an elderly person, you may not be able to see the print on the paper to fill out the form. You may not understand all of what's being asked of you. People need help.
Yep.
And there are not enough services out there to help each individual that needs the help, just like there are not enough beds available at shelters for anybody who wants to be off the streets. And I think it's really ridiculous that we're still having this conversation about homelessness in San Joaquin County. And here's another little nugget for all the people that still want to believe that, that the city got $50 million. Nobody got $50 million. City or county of San Joaquin got $50 million for homelessness. I think the amount is $6.5 million. And I would encourage people to learn how their city government works and understand that the bulk of the money goes to the county. It does not go to the city.
Right.
That's right.
Why the city's not doing anything. Who you need to be talking to is your board of supervisors to ask them, what have they done with the money? What are they planning to do with it? And why is it taking them so long? And now I'm done.
That right there. That right there. And that was a good, healthy, clean segue. Let's go ahead and go there. So last year, we received approximately $150 million. I'm saying approximately. I'm estimating down, right? Approximately $150 million in CARES funds in two different distributions, in two different amounts. So one was like 120 something, 130 something, and then there was another amount. That was on the county side. None of those funds, from my research and understanding, and I have done some research. If anybody know me, I'm talking to folks. I done asked a truckload of questions to the right people. So we've talked to county people. We've talked to continuum of care people. We've talked to Central Valley housing people. We done talked to folks to see, did any of that $150 million from the CARES funds in the year 2020 from the federal government get allocated towards housing stability, housing security, or homelessness? The answer to that was a resounding no. I want to pause there for a minute. The answer to that was a resounding no. Now, I stand to be corrected. I could have not talked to somebody that knew that there was another answer. But to the people that I have had research meetings with leaders from the community, when I say leaders from the community, I'm talking about just residents that vote. Anybody that vote and is a resident, or that don't vote and go and vote, or want to be involved, you a leader. So with community residents, people, that live and abide in the city and the county, we had research meetings with them. That part last year. Now, come to find out, $71 million in October, I found out $71 million of the CARES Act fund out of the $150 some odd million was allocated to the sheriff department for COVID, whatever. Now, guess what? The sheriff and them said, well, not just our sheriff, but all of the sheriffs all over the place was like, it's just too much work. We're so busy doing law enforcement and stuff that we can't really account for all of the way that we should track the funds. And so it's too tedious of a job. I took copious notes in my meetings. And so I want to make sure I stand corrected if that is not what it was that was given to me. So I reserve the right to tell you that I was wrong. However, in that space, some of the spaces Alicia was in with me too. So in some of them spaces, but in this research meeting, absolutely. So there was an adjustment that was made that said that the law enforcement officers that were doing the receiving the care funds from that COVID release package that was released, they did not have to actually do their itemized account like other agencies and entities did. Meaning, what does that translate to? There is no auditing that is taking place in that way in order to determine how those funds are being used in regard to COVID. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because now, voila, all of a sudden, since we had to spend all the care funds money in the year 2020, I know I'm gonna make somebody mad, might get in trouble. Lord, keep me, Pastor Curtis. I see you all here. Pray for me that I'm covered. So why? Because 2020, those funds needed to be used. Those funds for the CARES funds needed to be spent down. So we didn't have to, on the $71 million side under the sheriff's L, we didn't have to use general funds for the public safety area with the sheriff because we used CARES funds.
Wow.
Now, if
No
I'm wrong, we
accountability.
need to have a research meeting with our board of supervisors in order to make sure that then that is wrong. Because see, what I want is to be proven wrong. I want to be wrong. I would love to hear that that is wrong. Tony, that's a wrong assessment. I want Miguel Villaputa, Tom Patty, Kathy Mill. I want all of them from the board of supervisors to say that is wrong. That's the wrong assessment. Oh, that is absolutely wrong. That is not what took place. We did not use these funds and not have to account for what was spent on the sheriff's side in order to actually spend down without using funds for the general fund this year. So now we got $71 million that we're able to use that we didn't have to account for. And you've got organizations trying to figure out what to do with it. And then you got people like Miss Mims who is asking for grants and begging for funding and having to raise funds. We've got individuals that have plans because they've got land and they've gone to the county, to the city, to the county, to the city, to the county, to the city, trying to figure out how they can get support in order to use the land that they have for housing and homelessness. You've got school board that raised up different propositions to use buildings. Guess what? That ain't been used in my lifetime, and I'm 51, right? They're still vacant. They're still abandoned. They're still empty, probably rat infested, but ain't nobody else living in it but rodents and creatures and dust. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Oh no, we're not going to use that, and we don't want to lift this up for homeless or for the houseless or for what have you." So, oh, honey, we got a problem up in here, and I'm saying, okay, let's stir the pot. We need to talk about this stuff. Hi, Lang. How you doing?
Happy Wednesday evening, y'all. I came in right at the perfect time because you were on a roll.
Now, Lang, I already told Lang, I was like, Lang, I'm on one, and I'm on one today, and I'm on one for the rest of the 300 and some odd rest of the years in 2021 that God so be it permit me to be here. I have been quiet long enough. We stirring up the pot. So, what is going on, Lang? We've got resources. Thank you for reaching out to Stockton Strong. Thank you for having them provide a list of resources. I looked over the list of resources. However, I did tell you those resources, they're tapped out and exhausted. Yep. Those are the same list of resources that if you call 211, 211 is going to give you that same list because that's all that we have to go by. But it ain't a bed, right, Licia? Yep. Is there?
Right. It's not enough.
Haven of Peace is at capacity. Gospel Rescue Mission Center. I think that's where they're sending homeless that have COVID, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are homeless with COVID, that's where you should go. If you are homeless without COVID,
no way.
Oh, let me go on mute. I'm pissed. Oh God. That hurt.
Let me just say that typically the COVID folks are getting discharged from the hospital going to what we have named COVID House at Gospel Center Rescue Mission. And I think it's, what is it, Joan Sing Song that is like the point of contact that in public health. that do the admissions for the COVID house at Gospel Center Rescue Mission. Yeah, but outside of that, we have Gospel. They did open up the women's section they remodeled. They have a new area for women so they can accommodate a lot more women now. But we have Gospel, and we have Stockton Shelter for the Homeless, and that's primarily that's the game that we got here in Stockton as far as beds for homeless. And there's Stockton Family Shelter too.
Yep.
And Licia, let me make sure I say this too, Lang, so that you know. Modesto is calling us in San Joaquin County trying to figure out where to send their folks because they're at capacity. So just in case you thought,
here, we don't have enough beds.
Just in case you thought, that and are willing to pay transportation, not for their homeless. I'm talking about for those that have mental illness that are being released, that state mandates them to have placement for them before they can be released. And because of COVID has closed down and shut down, or some of their facilities are at capacity, they are reaching out to other counties to see if there is anywhere that these individuals can go. 9 times out of 10, they're being released out onto the street. They're being released into cars. They're couch surfing. So, homie, we got a problem for real, like a real problem. And while people is tripping off of fake news talking about using the fairgrounds for homelessness, at this point, what other options might there be? We got buildings not being used. They're getting ready to use them in Sacramento. Why aren't we using them here?
We need to ask our mayor, what's the timeline, right? What is the timeline? I have not had any direct conversation, but just in reading some of the stuff that has been posted, it's kind of a recycling. Some of the stuff is already in motion, right? These are things that have been happening. I haven't really, outside of, opening up a larger facility. What did they mention at one time? The record building, possibly as a site. Outside of that, I haven't heard anything new of what's not already available. St. Mary's has social services, on campus. They have medical, they have dental. They have the showers that are available that you can come. If you're not staying there, you can shower, wash your clothes. So I don't know, what is the timeline, and can we get our mayor to, kind of get on Darrell Steinberg's level of frustration and done, and let's do something now and quit talking about it. I don't know. What do you think, Lane?
I'm on the same page, and it's so good to see you three. By the way, Miss Harrison, long time no see.
Yes, good to see
it's
you.
great to be in this room with you. I don't know if we've ever met Miss Mims.
We have not.
I'm Lang.
Hi, Lang.
With you and Elder Tony, I will always show up and jump into whatever conversation you want me to jump into. But I'm on the same page. I'm just so deeply frustrated. Particularly this month, but honestly, since the pandemic has started, with the lack of urgency and the lack of deliberate coordination in our county. That's part of the reason that we started the Stockton Strong Coalition. And Elder Tony was asking me about do we have any guidance on warming centers this morning, as we were waking up and seeing that this inhumane environment for people to be out in the cold in. When at the beginning of the pandemic, we started the Stockton Strong Coalition very informally, just because as the stay-at-home orders were going into place, I looked around and I was talking to other folks at nonprofits in 211 or 3 Seeds, or with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and with Stand, and we were all confronted with the same questions, but no one was showing us or leading us to clear answers around around COVID testing, around where to get PPE. And unfortunately, I see some of the same problems happening again and again. I just continue to look around and wonder where our tax dollars are going, if not to help the most vulnerable, the most marginalized in our community respond to these crises that just keep coming. So I don't know. I mean, I'm frustrated and fed up as well. It frustrates me knowing that we have a county office of emergency services with dozens of staff members. And yet for some reason, my 65 plus parents have been waiting weeks to figure out where to even sign up for a vaccine list, right? I'm frustrated that it took someone, a private citizen like Elder Tony, right, to reach out and say, it's unacceptable that people are out in the cold with no place to go to be warm. Isn't someone doing something about that? I just like, this cannot be the community that we live in. I understand that no one is going to save us, like only the community can save ourselves. And yet also we set up these governmental institutions, hopefully to make sure that there is a safety net for all of us. And it just seems
I want to push pause on that. We actually are confused. I got your message too, Miss Penny. And so if you do have to tap out, thank you for coming in this evening. And I'll make sure that I also raise awareness to what it is that you guys are doing. If there's any last thing that you wanted to say before you tap out, if there's any last thing that you wanted to say, let me make space for you right now.
Nope, just keep me in the loop. We're all on the same page and we're going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get it done. I appreciate you. It was nice meeting you, Lang. I look forward to it.
You as well.
Thank you, Ms. Penny.
You're welcome.
So I believe in all sincerity that that what we have to do, my whole heart and objective this year and ongoing is to put the control of the city and the county back into the hands of the people. Let me say it again. We need to, and my whole objective as a community organizer is to organize in a way that puts the control of the city and the county back into the hands of the people.
Yep.
That we have to become very, very mindful of the fact that our taxes pay the salaries and the wages for those that work for us, those that are elected and those that run the city. Right. Board of supervisors, city staff, I could care less. So that 140 whatever triple digit that the city manager made and has made over all of the decades and years that I have been here still is accumulated through taxpayers' dollars. That means you actually work for me. I am actually your overseer and boss. I have a right to see you, a right to engage with you, a right to make recommendations, a right to talk to you. I have a right. Whether it's city council, whether it's board of supervisor. I'm going there for a reason, because accountability, there it is right there. Bam. Yes, we need to make sure that we are holding elected officials accountable. So what did they do in order to get some fire burning under the feet of the city council in Sacramento? They blew them up. They called them, they emailed them, they sent Twitter, they tweeted them and called them out on Twitter. That they did all that they needed to do in order to stir the pot, fan the flame, and provoke them to movement. And so look, they made them do it. And so that's what it is, right? And what'd you say, Licia?
I said, and they did it.
And they did it. They found the money. We're not asking them to know. They didn't say, oh, it's not in our budget, or we can't afford it, or we're coming out of bankruptcy, or we're this. Ain't nobody even trying to hear all of that. And county board of supervisors, the money is there. The money is there. The money is there. I am pretty sure that we can afford to take $1, $2, or $3 million from the sheriff department. I'm just thinking that if the sheriff had COVID and was, oh, sorry, he did. That's right. And was able to recover in the comfort and warmth of his own home before he came back to work and started evicting people that actually had record court orders to be evicted in February. So anyway, I said it. So
Yep.
they can afford. They can afford something. They can afford to release something. And I need us to. So we need to do some things, y'all. I want to provoke us for real. Like, do some stuff. I need y'all email your board of supervisors. Their
Yes.
next meeting that they're having, there's a meeting that is coming up on the 9th of February. Blow them up. You need to blow them up tomorrow. You need to email them, call them, demand to see them, demand the right to speak with them, find out what it is that they're doing with the CARES Act funds. Where is that money at? Demand to know that. You have a right to know. Those funds were generated from your federal taxes, and the state funds that come are generated from your state taxes. And your county funds are generated, and your city funds are generated. You pay taxes. These funds, that's your money. That's our money. Demand to know where that money is at. Hold them accountable. And if it doesn't make sense when they break it down, tell them and explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old. Break it down to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Tell it to me again. I don't understand. But demand to know. You have a right to.
And can we also ask people to ask them why weren't warming centers available? This storm was forecasted, it was predicted, it was not a surprise. We all knew it was coming. People were being told to prepare. So who is accountable for having put into place something to protect those that were homeless? I mean, that storm last night was horrific for those of us that were inside and listening to what was going on outside. I can't even imagine having to be outside in that climate and in those conditions. Yep. And who was responsible, and why wasn't something done? And what is the plan? I mean, this is just, we're just halfway, we're not even halfway through winter. This is not going to be the only storm that's coming through.
Right.
I mean, humanity, we should care about people having to be outside in the street. As much as
we can act a fool about a golf course, we should act the same kind of fool about people dying of COVID and the flu and just freezing to death on the street. Yes.
Yep. Yes. And we know that because of climate change, these extreme weather patterns are going to become more and more common, especially in places like Stockton. We are so vulnerable to the effects of a changing temperature, of a changing world. And if we truly want to bring all members of our community with us into the future, how are our leaders actually planning for this this sort of instability?
This is my ask for action. We want warming centers. Is that, Licia, is that that's the minimum of what we can ask for right now?
Yes, and we've had warming centers before, and I understand the impacts of COVID and people needing to be socially distant. However, it seems like they should still be able to provide these centers and expand them. I mean, what did Sacramento just opened up? You know, they're using funds to give to churches to help house people. I mean, but they have done that before. You know, Sacramento is our neighbor. And, you know, I remember, I'm getting off track a little bit, but I remember many years ago when our city council, where did they go? Was it New York to go see what they were doing about the homeless situation? Right. As if that was going to mirror what was going on in our community, when they could have just went, 40 miles north to go see what they're doing over there. Because, San Joaquin and Sacramento County, we have people that travel back and forth between the counties. It makes so much more sense to see what they're doing, because they are years ahead of us, to see how we can implement some of what's happened there here. And I know everybody wants to complain, you know, like we know homelessness is out of control. It's not something that we're going to fix overnight, but we could certainly use some education or learn from what they have done that has been successful that we may be able to replicate in our own community without having to spend another year figuring it out.
Yep.
So let me see. Let's drop some emails up in here because my prayer and heart is that folks will hear this and they will actually move. It does not hurt anything. Now, well, so we're gonna start with the Board of Supervisors, but I also want to make a statement in regard to the City Council. The email that is on the website for the City Council is an email that they 9 times out of 10 will not see. So what I recommended, yes, Lang, I told you I'm on one. So if you're gonna come in my space this year, know that you come in and we come in with it all.
This is the information our community needs to know.
So that City Council email address that is on the website, I need you to know I don't use it because they don't even see it. It's something that is fielded and vetted through and fleshed through by somebody else, and 9 times out of 10 they won't get it. So if you bombard them those emails on the website, they're not going to get it. So here's what I recommend that you do. Call them out on social media if they have a social media page. Tag them, ask them, email them. The other thing that I recommend that you do, blow up the city clerk's phone. Email her. She is a sweetheart. I really like her. She's really awesome. But if you blow her up about warming centers, she's going to make sure they get the message. Yes, because I think it is, I know on the state level, all you got to do is make 10 calls about a thing and they have to report it to legislative. So we need more than 10 calls. So we need to email the manager, the mayor. You need to call the city clerk and leave messages for your city council member. I don't know what district I live in. Well, then leave one for all of them. Just say, I live in this address here, and I want them to know that we demand for them to have an emergency meeting and find funds in order to put up warming centers for the homeless in our community. City Council, Board of Supervisor, email them. Let's see. I looked up Tom Patty because he was the first one that came to mind.
Oh, he's my district.
I believe he's the chair of the board right now, right?
Yes. So let's see, Mr. Patty. So if you're gonna email your Board of Supervisors, let's see. Well, that doesn't look like his email. T. Patty. So you're going to put their first initial and their last name. So if you're going to email Tom Patty, for example, it would be T. Patty, T-P-A-T-T-I. Hi, Supervisor Patty. We're going to send you some emails asking you to do some things for the county. So if it's going to be Miguel, I don't never say his name right, Villapueda?
I think it's Villapudua or Villapudua.
Villapudua. Oh, it's beautiful, and I can't make my tongue say it right.
I can't either.
Villapudua.
So the first name, the first initial, and the last name at sjgov.org.
Yep.
Email you and the website. Go ahead.
I was going to say their websites also include each of them has a chief of staff. Each of them has one staff member that is on their website. If you just Google San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors, it's always a good idea. Like you mentioned with the city clerk, it's always a good idea to include those staff members too.
They're pretty responsive.
Staff members are?
I've emailed them before.
County Board of Supervisors. So you're going to go and you're going to look up their website, and you guys are going to go ham. So what I'm expecting is to have people mad at me tomorrow because an army of y'all started sending emails. Not the city manager, God bless him, the mayor, the new mayor. Welcome, Kevin Lincoln. Welcome, 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 welcome to just your mayorship. So super excited. So y'all have at it. I need y'all to blow them up. We need warming centers. We need them yesterday. We need them yesterday. So that's the ask that we have of you all. Of course, there will be more asks. This is just the beginning. Anything else that y'all feel like, y'all need to ask of the people before we tap out?
Just a reminder, once again, we have had warming centers before. This is not something new.
Go ahead, Lane.
I couldn't say any better.
Warming centers now. That part. We want warming centers and we want warming centers now. So city, county, call them, email them, blow them up. Today is Wednesday. So for the next 48 hours, share this video. I'm asking that you share this video. Housing first model. We need harm reduction housing. You know what? I need, is it Marcina? Martha, I need you, and here, let me give you my email address because I need you on my housing team. faithinthevalley.org. Now, and yes, I am putting together an issue team for housing this year. And so those that have been directly impacted by housing, that have a passion for housing, I need you guys to be on my team. And so if you are interested in being a part of that housing team, in order to find out where the money at, what they're doing with it, in order to help pass and move policies, in order to protect and preserve housing, affordable housing, ain't nobody got time to wait for you to build it. If you build it, yes, but they here now, okay? 5 years from now. What am I telling the people that need a house today? Affordable housing. We're going to come back and talk about that. We're going to come back and talk about what affordable housing really is. Because right now, can't nobody who works in the city of Stockton afford the affordable housing without some type of subsidized assistance. Okay. I am on your housing team. Yes. Email me and we will meet. Okay, y'all. City, blow them up. County, blow them up. Warming centers, we need them yesterday. 2 days, over the next 2 days. Share this video, share the word, spread the word. Create memes, do whatever you got to do. I'm going to create one too. Call the supervisors. We want warming centers. We want them yesterday.
And your mayor.
And your mayor. And your mayor. All right. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging with us. Share this video. Spread the word. Warming centers, warming centers, warming centers. We love you. Peace out.
Good night.